The Galactic Zoo stood as a testament to the vastness of the universe's biodiversity. Alien species from every corner of the cosmos gathered to witness the HFY's prized collection of dangerous and exotic creatures. The HFY, meticulous curators of the zoo, took pride in their work, explaining to visitors that many of the creatures housed within were untouchable, either too aggressive, too venomous, or simply too unpredictable. Among the visitors were a group of humans, newly inducted into the galactic fold. Their reactions differed starkly from those of the other species present. Where most viewed the creatures with apprehension or scientific detachment, the humans seemed enchanted. They leaned closer to the enclosures, their faces alight with curiosity and awe, a stark contrast to the guarded demeanor of the other delegates. At one particular exhibit, a HFY guide halted the group. Behind a shimmering containment field stood a creature unlike anything seen on Earth. It was the Vrexel, a towering, spiked predator with venomous barbs and an infamous reputation. The Vrexel, the guide intoned, their voice resonating with authority, is one of the deadliest beings in the known galaxy. Cannot be approached, let alone tamed. This venom kills instantly. Observe from a distance only. Elena, a human biologist, tilted her head, studying the creature intently. Fascinating, she murmured. Instead of stepping back like the others, she moved closer to the barrier. The guide's frills flared in alarm. Stop! Do not approach further. This is not a creature to interact with. Elena crouched just outside the containment field, her gaze fixed on the Vrexel. It growled, a deep, menacing sound that reverberated through the room. The other visitors froze, their apprehension palpable. But Elena's demeanor remained calm. Slowly, deliberately, she extended her hand, palm open, just beyond the barrier. The Vrexel's many eyes locked onto her, its growl deepening. The tension in the room was unbearable. Delegates whispered among themselves, anticipating a violent reaction. Yet the Vrexel hesitated, took a tentative step forward, its barbed tail twitching. To everyone's shock, it leaned its massive, spiked head toward Elena's hand. The moment her fingers made contact with its armored surface, the growling ceased entirely. Instead, a strange, rhythmic vibration filled the air. It's purring? One of the HFY whispered, their tone laced with disbelief. Elena smiled faintly, her fingers gliding along the creature's rough, spiked skin. Seems like it just needed a little attention, she said lightly. The HFY were frozen, their analytical minds unable to process what they were witnessing. For centuries, they had studied the Vrexel, declaring it an unapproachable apex predator. Yet here was a human, casually petting it like a household animal. How? One of the HFY finally managed to ask, their voice shaky. Elena stood, the Vrexel now calm and docile behind her. Humans have a knack for this sort of thing, she said with a shrug. Sometimes all a creature needs is a little trust. And maybe a scratch behind the ears. The delegation moved on, but the HFY lingered, staring at the Vrexel. For the first time, their perception of humanity began to shift. There was more to this fragile, emotional species than they had ever imagined. The HFY scientists convened in their research chamber, a space filled with holographic displays and streams of data. Footage of the human, Elena, interacting with the Vrexel played on a loop. Every frame was analyzed, but no explanation presented itself. The HFY prided themselves on their understanding of interspecies behavior, yet this act defied all logic. No being had ever pacified a Vrexel before, much less elicited affection. One of the researchers finally spoke, breaking the silence. This cannot be mere coincidence. The creature's biology rejects all forms of external contact. What makes humans different? Meanwhile, Elena and her team had been invited to provide insight into their behavior. The HFY, reluctant to admit ignorance, posed their questions with a thin veil of curiosity. Explain, one of them demanded. How is it possible for a fragile species like yours to engage with such a dangerous organism? Elena chuckled softly. It's not about fragility or strength. It's about connection. Humans have been doing this for millennia on Earth, interacting with creatures many times our size or strength. The XHRE were unconvinced. Your world's creatures do not compare to those in this zoo. The Vrexel's venom alone should deter all attempts at interaction. Elena nodded. True, but it's not about avoiding danger. It's about understanding. Back on Earth, we've tamed wolves to become dogs, bonded with creatures as small as mice and as large as elephants. We've even kept venomous snakes as pets. It's in our nature to try and connect, even when it seems irrational. She gestured to one of her colleagues, who displayed a series of images from Earth. People cuddling with tarantulas, handling stingrays, and even befriending animals like lions and bears. The XHRE were bewildered. Why, one finally asked, what purpose does this serve? Is it a survival strategy? Elena considered the question. In a way, yes. Humans evolved as social creatures. Bonding, even with animals, is part of how we survive. It's not just about taming for utility. It's about mutual trust. When we pet something, we're communicating safety, respect, and sometimes even love. Animals can sense that. The XHRE exchanged skeptical glances. Your explanation is insufficient. Trust is irrelevant to a creature like the Vrexel. It acts on instinct alone. Instinct can be influenced, Elena countered. When I approached the Vrexel, I wasn't threatening it. I made myself vulnerable. That's something even the most aggressive creature can recognize. It's not magic. It's just empathy. The XHRE struggled to process the concept. Empathy was a trait they viewed as unnecessary and inefficient, yet the evidence before them was undeniable. To test her claim, they allowed Elena to interact with another creature, the Axtran, a six-legged beast known for its territorial aggression. Once again, she extended her hand, spoke softly, and within moments, the Axtran's hostility dissolved. The XHRE watched in stunned silence as the creature nuzzled her arm. They ran simulations, dissected the footage, and even attempted to mimic her approach themselves. Every effort failed when performed by anyone other than a human. It was becoming clear, humans possessed a unique ability, one that could not be easily replicated. For the XHRE, this revelation was both humbling and profoundly unsettling. The XHRE could no longer dismiss the phenomenon as a fluke. They expanded the experiment, bringing in creatures that had never shown docility or even hesitation in the face of threats. Humans were invited to interact under strict supervision, with layers of contingency plans in place. Despite their precautions, the results continued to defy expectations. Elena volunteered to interact with the Gravix, the most feared predator in the Galactic Zoo. The Gravix was a massive reptilian creature, its body covered in jagged scales and razor-sharp spines. It was a beast of pure instinct, attacking anything that entered its enclosure without hesitation. No species, not even the XHRE themselves, had dared to engage with it directly. As Elena approached the Gravix, its growls reverberated through the containment area. Its eyes locked onto her, its muscles coiling in preparation to strike. The XHRE observed from behind reinforced barriers, bracing for the worst. But Elena remained calm, her movements slow and deliberate. She crouched several meters away from the creature and began speaking softly. Though the Gravix could not understand her words, the tone of her voice seemed to have an effect. Its growls softened, its posture shifting from aggression to wariness. Inch by inch, she closed the distance, her hand outstretched. The XHRE held their breath as the Gravix leaned forward, sniffing at her hand. Instead of lashing out, it let out a low rumble, not of anger but of curiosity. Elena's fingers brushed against its scales, and the room fell silent. The Gravix, which had been the epitome of violence moments before, lowered its head as she began stroking its jagged hide. The XHRE scientists scrambled to document the event, their instruments struggling to interpret what was happening. "This is impossible," one of them muttered. The Gravix's neural patterns should not allow for this kind of interaction. Another scientist countered, "Perhaps it's not about the creature's biology. Perhaps it's about the human's approach." Elena continued petting the Gravix, her voice steady and soothing. "You see," she explained, It's not just about being fearless. It's about understanding what the creature needs. The Gravix isn't evil or malicious. It's just scared. All predators, no matter how dangerous, can be calmed if you address their fear instead of their aggression. Her words struck a chord with the XHRE. Fear was not an emotion they had considered in their studies of the Gravix. To them, it was a simple predator, governed by hunger and instinct. But the human perspective reframed everything. Over the next few days, the XHRE allowed humans to engage with other infamous creatures in the zoo. Time and again, the results were the same. Creatures that had been deemed untouchable responded positively to human interaction. The XHRE tried to replicate these results, mimicking human gestures and tones, but every attempt ended in failure. It became clear that humanity's strength lay not in physical power or advanced technology, but in something far more profound: their ability to connect. For the XHRE, this was both fascinating and unsettling. How could a species so seemingly insignificant hold such a profound advantage? The XHRE High Council called an emergency meeting. For centuries, they had considered themselves the apex of understanding in matters of biology and interspecies dynamics. Yet humans, a species they had barely regarded as notable, had accomplished what they could not: forming genuine bonds with creatures that no other species could approach. This revelation was not just humbling, it was transformative. At the meeting, the XHRE lead biologist addressed the council. We must recognize that the humans possess an ability that goes beyond mere biology. It is a synthesis of empathy, adaptability, and something we cannot quantify. This ability has implications not only for taming beasts but for interspecies relations across the galaxy. The council debated the implications. Some argued that humanity's success was purely anecdotal, a series of coincidences. Others saw it as an evolutionary advantage that could shift the balance of power in the galaxy. If humans can calm the Gravix, one council member pointed out, what else might they accomplish? Could they diffuse conflicts between civilizations? Could they turn enemies into allies? Meanwhile, Elena and her team were invited to share their techniques with other species. Delegates from across the galaxy arrived to observe the humans in action. Despite their best efforts to imitate human methods, none of the other species could replicate the results. The XHRE attempted to pet the Vrexel, but the creature recoiled in hostility. A species of empathic telepaths tried to bond with the Gravix, only to be met with indifference. The humans explained that their success was not about technique alone, it was about intent. "You can't fake this," Elena said during a demonstration. "When we approach these creatures, we're not thinking about control or dominance. We're thinking about trust. That's something you have to feel, not just mimic." This revelation sent ripples through the galactic community. Species that had long relied on hierarchical systems and rigid protocols began rethinking their approaches to relationships, not just with animals but with each other. For the first time, interspecies communication included lessons from humanity's seemingly simple yet profound philosophy: connection over control. The XHRE eventually proposed a new initiative, a program where humans would serve as ambassadors of interspecies understanding. They would travel across the galaxy, teaching their methods and fostering cooperation between civilizations that had been at odds for centuries. Elena and her team were at the forefront of this effort, their work transforming the way species interacted. The Galactic Zoo became a symbol of this shift. Once a place of containment and observation, it was now a hub for understanding and connection. Aliens traveled from light years away to witness humans interacting with the once feared creatures. The Gravix, now a docile giant, often lounged beside Elena during these visits, much to the amazement of onlookers. By the end of the year, the XHRE issued a statement acknowledging humanity's unique contribution to galactic society. "The humans have shown us a truth we overlooked for millennia," the declaration read. "Strength is not defined by physical might or advanced technology, but by the ability to bridge divides and foster trust. They can pet anything, and perhaps, through them, we can learn to do the same." For humanity, this was more than recognition. It was proof that their greatest strength lay not in conquest but in connection. And for the galaxy, it was the beginning of a new era, one where even the fiercest divides could be crossed with an outstretched hand and a gentle touch.